Hari Om friends, welcome to the third part of the series on how British stole $45 trillion from India. So we are coming near Deepavali or Diwali. So if I don't manage to produce any videos before Deepavali, very happy Diwali, Shubh Deepavali to all of you. So without further ado, let's move on to today's slides. So in the last couple of episodes, we saw the overall kind of uh, eagle's view of how the British stole 45 trillion and what was the breakup of the amounts during the roughly 150 odd years of that period till 1947. Now we'll kind of go into the specifics because we're going to break each period down. So what was the situation before 1765? So this was before the East India Company got complete domination over Bengal. Now Bengal at that point of time was not the truncated West Bengal of today. So it covered the whole of Bangladesh, what used to be known as East Bengal, uh, Bihar, and a large part of Orissa as well. So it was a massive province and very rich, very diverse, very talented people even today. A lot of manufacturers, especially in terms of textiles, handicrafts, goods, and obviously very fertile. So a lot of rice being produced as well. So very rich province overall. So before East India Company, now the company did not have military domination. Okay, so the scenario was the East India Company used to buy goods from producers, so maybe textiles, cloth, raw materials, cotton, rice, and so on, and it used to send it back to Britain. Now obviously there was a catch in this, because in Britain rice was sold on the local market, but finished textiles, were prohibited from being sold on the local market because they would completely destroy British industry. This was before the Industrial Revolution. Uh, and one of the key reasons was the quality of the cloth, Indian cloth, was very high. Even after the Industrial Revolution, the British factories simply could not match it, which is why they put tariffs of around 200% to kill off, all Indian handicraft and manufacture. And these were then re-exported to the Europe, especially France, with a massive markup in prices. And all these goods, as I mentioned before, were transported in British ships manned by British officers. So the entire revenue uh, was made to stay in England, very specifically, not in Britain, because Great Britain is really England ruling everybody else, so ruling Wales and Scotland. And in a few years, Scotland is going to break apart anyway from the United Kingdom, so it won't be united anymore. But that's another reality. So the British used to pay in silver, and the East India Company obviously used kind of deducting all the expenses and minus the markup, used to pass it on to the local producers. So the Indians were getting paid, and obviously trade was flourishing. Now, what happened after 1765? Now, the 1760s were a very eventful time, because one of the last great Hindu powers, the Marathas, came very close to overthrowing Muslim rule completely from India. And their plan, if they won the Battle of Panipat in 1761, was next to swivel around and head towards the Bengal presidency, and drive the British into the ocean. But that never happened. So what happened after 1765? Because the East India Company pretty much got the tax collecting rights to the whole region, and this also meant they had military domination now. So the East India Company now was collecting taxes from the people of this huge province, and they were also buying goods from the producers and the farmers, so textiles, cotton, rice, etc. How did this work? So what used to happen was, for example, if 100 rupees was collected as tax from, say, a weaver, the weaver used to get paid 50 rupees from the same tax, and the East India Company used to give 50 rupees for itself. So essentially what was happening was the weaver was selling his goods for free to the East India Company. So it was completely free of cost to them. And when they re-exported it to Britain, it was still the same thing. So British ships, British officers, and rice can be sold on the local English market, not finished textiles. They had to be re-exported to Europe with a massive markup. So just to give you an example, £5 worth of goods were sold at a markup of, you can imagine, £75. So massive, crazy markup and crazy profits. So everything was free for Britain. So it was, this is what is known as a captive slave market. So everybody who talks about the great benefits of colonization, we got railways, telegraph, transport, etc. All of this is after the industrial revolution, much later. We are talking 1850s and post 1850s. Before that, the industrial revolution itself was made possible by this huge amount of free surplus cash pouring into Britain, because it was re-exporting all these goods from India to Europe, especially France, and then getting these massive profits. So even when they had to import a lot of stuff from Europe, because Britain doesn't really produce anything. And again, another point which Professor Patnaik has made, that the Britain doesn't never had anything that India wanted, whereas India had everything that Britain wanted. And even today is the same thing. So if you look at the trade figures, they are, I think, less than 1 billion, which is nothing, which is really peanuts for India. And so Britain never ran a deficit with mainland Europe, because while they were importing stuff from Europe, they were essentially selling free stuff which they didn't have to pay for at all on the mainland continent. So you can imagine it was a massive bonanza for them. And this had many consequences, especially for Indians. So I call this the depopulation project, and the tax collection regime of the East Indian Company was extremely harsh, brutal. They used to practice rape, mass killings, torture, everything under the sun to extract the maximum revenue from Bengal. So between 1769 and 1770, there was a massive famine, and around 1/3 of the population of Bengal, so the estimates range from anywhere from 5 million to 10 million, perished. And it took many years for the population to actually recover to its previous levels. And as I mentioned, textiles were re-exported to Europe, and profits, so £5 worth of goods were sold in Europe for £75. And this had double benefits to the UK. So no payment liability, because you are getting stuff for free. So what's the need to pay Indians? They are paying taxes, and they are also giving you their goods for free. And re-exports to Europe reduced the trade deficit with Europe. So this was, kind of, they had their cake and ate it as well. And just one point I need to make again, because people kind of project today's image 250 years. So if you got all these shiny big buildings in London, etc., we kind of project it backwards and think, oh, we were backwards technology, so which was why we got conquered. It was nothing like that. So this is another very pernicious myth. We were at technological parity with the British, and in many cases we were actually ahead. We were simply quite naive, and we lacked the real politic and the cunning of the British, which is why we lost out. It's as simple as that. So pointing out that, okay, the British invented this screw and that changed the course of history is really, it's very kind of juvenile and childish thinking. Okay, so that's it for this time. So in the next part of the series, we'll have a look at the situation after 1833, and I'll also kind of expound a little bit on the benefits to Britain and some of the mechanisms adopted. So friends, if you have liked this video, please do remember to like, share and subscribe, and I hope you have a very happy and joyful Diwali. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.